Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. Unless you are new, then welcome for the first time. I like to make these little videos about films I enjoy and want to share. Kind of call them reviews, but they're more like recommendations because I try not to go into anything really spoiler related. And I also try to not really focus on any ones that I didn't like. Figured I'd rather kind of let you know what I like rather than ranting about something that I was disappointed in. But there are some cases, such as in the case of this film, where I want to revisit one that either I didn't really enjoy initially or just couldn't really get into. Kind of give it a second chance, after it's been a little bit of time since that first viewing, to try to go in with an open mind, see if maybe on the second time around I enjoyed a bit more. And if I enjoyed it more than I did initially, I'd like to make that little video about it. So for this entry, I revisited the 2019 Nicolas Cage film, Color Out of Space, which is based on an H.P. Lovecraft story of the same name from about the mid to late 1920s. Now, this one is also directed by Richard Stanley, who was the original director before his firing for the 1996 film The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is quite an interesting history for that film, which is worth checking into, especially via the documentary Val, which I did a review for about 2.5 years ago almost. So definitely check out my back catalog for that one, or just look into that documentary Val, because it does have some information about Val Kilmer's experience trying to make that Island of Dr. Moreau film. But anyways, getting way off track there. As for what this film is about, the adaptation it is trying to kind of bring to screen, the synopsis is as follows. A secluded farm is struck by a strange meteorite which has apocalyptic consequences for the family living there and possibly the world. So Lovecraft-related adaptations are always really interesting. They take these twists and turns that are kind of odd, and in order to try to visualize what Lovecraft has written, often have an interesting look and feel and pace to these films when they're just trying to convey that story. Now, I've reviewed 2 other Lovecraft adaptations previously, one for Reanimator as well as From Beyond, both of which, if you stick around to the end, I will put up some links for you to check those out. But I really enjoyed both of those. They were ones that I'd kind of grown up with. And it has been a little bit hard, though, trying to get on board with the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, because some of the older works like his are kind of formatted and paced a bit differently, and you really need to have quite an imagination to be able to take them in. So it's really more, for me, a bit of a workout to try to sit down and read one of those. But Color Out of Space, although I haven't read the original story, I hear is no different. It's a very interesting one that many thought would be impossible to even bring to the screen. But this one is beautifully put together, and the use of both practical and digital effects is simply amazing. It's extremely creative and gorgeous to kind of take this whole film in. So when this meteor hits in the story, we go from a very peaceful and serene farmhouse, which we have spent a lot of time, about 20 plus minutes, just getting to know this family, their situation, their lives on this property, to this slow creep of very colorful aspects bleeding into their world in some ways. Lots of strange happenings are slowly kind of setting in, and they just kind of spread and spread, like some sort of fungus spreading over the property and kind of seeping into the water supply as well. Which in this film, it's not just making this water taste kind of weird, but there was a hydrologist who's in the area doing some tests on the groundwater, and when he's come across this, he sees that something's wrong with it, and he's warning them against drinking it. But along with that, this water is now causing problems with the crops on this farm. So as things kind of slowly play out, this family begins to change. Aspects of their personalities kind of warp a bit. They get under each other's skin. We have these angry outbursts, confusion, panic, and just deadly accidents happening as well. Now, I've realized I've been using the term slowly quite a bit in this, and I think that's why maybe I didn't really like this one initially, or I just didn't really take to it initially. This one is a really slow journey. It's just shy of 2 hours, so it's not a very long film, but it takes a while to kind of get through it due to this overall feel that they really try to drive home. This sense of serenity initially, and then slowly working its way into being like more and more corrupted. The color itself is hard to describe according to what I've read about the original story, that it is a color our characters in this film have never seen before, and they can't even really describe it. Before this, we get a very purple kind of like purple and pink shaded effect spreading both physically in the physically colored props, as well as the digital effects being used, as we see like little creatures and funguses kind of spawning out of this. And so between those, The practical and digital, they really blend things together really well, using the practical when they can, but using digital where needed or when they need to kind of extend something or change something about the colors. They really balance it well. So slowly we have the issues of this kind of creeping invasion, brought on from this crash spreading. We have the water issues. Animals on the farm are just getting deformed. The crops are becoming ruined. And they're kind of driving our family a bit batty here. Now, eventually, we work our way through this story, which is dark and twisted the entire way with some great performances within. And a lot of this is simply a really good mystery. The thing that I always mention I love about anything related to horror is that mystery. Not just of what this thing is that crashed. It gets to a point where you don't really care what this thing is, but you're just wondering where this is going, how it's going to turn out, because you really get the sense that not only are things getting worse and worse for the family, but that nobody is safe and that this may spread as far as the story goes beyond that farm. And by the time we do kind of finally get to our ending, it really isn't a rosy, happy, all loose ends tied up kind of ending to feel happy about, but more this feel that there's going to be a continuation to this as far as the story goes, an infection of sort that's going to spread outside of this farm. So it is a bit of a downer in some ways. So I think that on my first viewing, I was expecting or at least wanting something a bit more exciting. Or that the runtime was maybe a little bit long for me, seeing as that films like From Beyond and Reanimator were both just barely about 90 minutes. I think one of them was only about 80 minutes. And this one, approaching 2 hours, is a bit long for the material on this viewing. At least on the first viewing of it, I felt that way. But on this viewing, I realized that extra time is really needed to kind of introduce this family, get you on board with them so you actually care about what's happening there. So on this second viewing, I just went into it with a different frame of mind. I resisted the temptation to start looking up an actor or director or somebody on my phone, which often leads to like a 10-minute spiral as I go down these rabbit holes of the film, losing track of what's going on. I just resisted, sat back, knew I would be in for a bit of a slow journey, but one that as it plays out turned out to be more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this quick little video here for Color Out of Space from 2019, which at the time of this video is available on Shudder, as it is by, I believe, that RLJE Films, which gave us a lot of other interesting Shudder gems such as PG Psycho Gorman, Violent Night, Suitable Flesh, Satanic Panic, Mayhem, and Mandy, which is another Nicolas Cage film. I'd come across this one on Blu-ray, and it was pretty cheap, so I scooped it up, and I really feel that this is one of those films that on Blu-ray it really pops due to like the kind of color palette that they're trying to convey for this film. Anyways, check out Shudder if interested. They usually have some sort of a free trial available. Personally, I started a free trial and I've just kept it going ever since because I can always find something to watch, whether it's a Friday night viewing of Joe Bob Briggs presenting something like I did the video on last week for Donnie Darko, or some of these throwback films from the 80s or even 70s and 60s that they have thrown in there along with newer films. It's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, this one is a bit of a slow burn here and there. It's more of a creeping mystery than anything exciting or explosive, but going in with that in mind, you may end up really enjoying it as well. Well, anyways, that's all that I have for this one here. Thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, as it really does help out quite a bit. Please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing and hitting that bell if you like this content. And I'm going to have those links popping up in just a couple seconds here for some of those other films that I covered about H.P. Lovecraft. Anyways, thanks again for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.